I watched some really good films in September, some that I've been meaning to watch for a while, and some that just popped up whilst I was looking for something else, and I decided to watch that instead. But nevertheless, it was a great month. I did also watch a couple of films in theatres, and whilst they do make the list, they scrape by. That doesn't mean they were bad films, but I just had a bit of a weird month regarding rewatches, which I don't include in this series. But without further ado, let's get started. I've seen bits of Slumdog Millionaire throughout the years and have always been a fan of Danny Boyle's work, but it was only this month that I finally sat down and watched it, and to no surprise whatsoever, it was brilliant. Dev Patel gifts us with an incredibly true performance, and the fact that it was his debut role in a feature is outstanding. The story itself is intriguing from beginning to end and keeps you engaged through a sad but somewhat comedic upbringing, but also the questions being asked, even though I only had a chance at knowing a couple of them, kept my mind active. It's also one of those films that just makes me want to go back through the director's filmography. In the Loop was brilliant, but there's something about political satires that I just really like, and when they're directed by Armando Iannucci, star Peter Capaldi, Tom Hollander amongst others, you really can't go wrong. Sure, this may be funnier to me as I live in the UK, but I'd still recommend it to most people. Now, unlike The Death of Stalin, which I love, there isn't this absurdist dictator aspect that they can ride off for comedic effect, which brings it down a bit for me, but they manage to do it in other amusing ways. As far as political satires go, it's brilliant, but at least for me it doesn't reach Dr. Strangelove or The Death of Stalin levels. Great accessory to the thick of it though. I had really high hopes for Bodies, and usually it wouldn't make my best films of the month list, but I needed a couple of fillers and this is one of them. Now, it isn't a bad movie at all, in fact I gave it a 7 out of 10, but it just felt like it was missing something, more Pete Davidson being one of those things. Yes, it's my generation slasher film, every reference you can understand, it's fun to watch, has a decent horror aspect, but like I said, something was just missing. It does however make me really excited to see what Helena Rain does next, and it was great to see Maria Bakalova outside of Borat. I can't put my finger on why, but hardcore realism in films like I, Daniel Blake have really intrigued me over the past few years. I watched Sorry We Missed You a couple of months ago and loved it, so it was only a matter of time before I got around to this, and I'm so surprised I didn't get to it sooner. And having a cinematographer like Robbie Ryan who can transport that world onto your screen makes it a completely different experience. Out of all the films I'll talk about today, this is the one I urge you to watch the most. So, I'm not the biggest fan of rom-coms, and I was actually quite hesitant going into About Time. I don't often watch them, and when I do, it's stuff like Love Actually, Notting Hill, Four Weddings and a Funeral, where there's a pretty obvious theme, and this has the best parts of all of those. Bill Nighy, London, and it just makes you feel good. But when you throw in the time travel aspect in a really weird way, it seems quite normal, but it does add something that the other films don't have. As for the casting, you really can't ask for anything more. Maybe Hugh Grant, but he's done enough of these films already, although I would have loved to have seen more Tom Hollander. I think at the end of the day, it's just another rom-com. It has that fun time travel aspect, a happily ever after, and makes you feel good when you watch it, but sometimes that's exactly what you need. Following About Time, I wanted another film by Richard Curtis, and without looking towards Christmas films or ones where he didn't serve as director, I had only one option. The Boat That Rocked, or for you Americans out there, Pirate Radio. And this was one of the best times I've had watching a film this month. The story was utterly insane and in the best possible way. Something is always happening. I don't think it's possible for it to have a better cast with Rhys Ifans, Bill Nighy, Emma Thompson, Nick Frost, Kenneth Branagh and Philip Seymour Hoffman, just to name a few, and it's an insane ride from beginning to end. If you're looking for something a bit lesser known, definitely check this out. Now onto one of the hardest documentaries I've ever had to sit through, Bowling for Columbine. I don't even live in America and this was a difficult watch, to me anyway. Michael Moore really portrayed the craziness of some people who no matter what happens won't give up anything, but really I don't think I can talk about this much more, especially in a video like this. Although if you are looking for a good documentary, then it's on his YouTube channel. I've had Kramer vs. Kramer on my watch list for years now, and I'm so glad it didn't disappoint. Sure, there isn't anything particularly special about it, but with a solid story, incredible cast, and the fact that it's set in New York, it's really hard to find much to dislike about it. I can't really think of much more to say than that. It's a classic from the 70s, and everyone should give it a go at some point if they haven't already. Now, growing up, one of my favourite films was the 2003 version of Peter Pan, and I'm sure I watched this version a couple of times, but it's been well over a decade since my last watch of this, and it was exactly what I expected. The animation brought me back to my childhood, Captain Hook reminded me of Robin Williams, the score was magical, and apart from a couple of unfortunate scenes, it's a really easy watch. It really makes me want to watch everything regarding old Disney again, but I'm going to try and refrain from it for my own sanity, or at least stick to once a month. It was great to go back to a childhood classic though, and whilst I don't include rewatches in this list, I'm going to give it a pass because it was such a long time ago. Now this may just be the hype talking, as I've been really excited for this film for a while, and I did try and block out all of the drama surrounding it during promotion for the film, but when it actually came to watching Don't Worry Darling, I had a really good time. Florence Pugh blows it out of the park as always, Harry Styles does a great job for a newcomer and does get me excited for the future, but it was really the story that kept me intrigued. You sort of knew where it was going, and yes, it could have had a more satisfying ending, but I'll be honest, I really don't think it deserves the hate it's been getting. Oh, and I also watched Dharma this month, and from a storytelling and filmmaking standpoint, I thought it was incredible. Evan Peters gave an awe-inspiring performance. I'm just not sure how to feel about these movies and series as a whole. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did have a recommendation for an analysis, leave it down below. Thanks so much for watching, and maybe I'll see you next time. Bye!